Matthew Stafford, LA Rams quarterback, Super Bowl champion, comes out swinging in defense of Jalen Hurts. Well, sort of. He doesn't actually specifically mention Jalen Hurts, but with all of the talk and all of the nonsense we've had to deal with in this entire past season and off season with regard to Jalen Hurts, I thought what Matthew Stafford said was really interesting. It applies to Jalen Hurts. I thought it was worth talking about. I'm curious what all of you think as well. So, of course, be sure to let me know in the comments after. Also, thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate it. If you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's the only way YouTube sends this out to anyone else. All right, so listen up. This is only about, I think, like 30, maybe 35 seconds, Matthew Stafford talking about the quarterback position. And just as soon as he started talking, all I could think about was criticism of Jalen Hurts. So let's take a listen to this.
Throughout my career, I've seen so many guys that you go out and watch them.
Sorry about that. It didn't kick in the sound right away.
Throughout my career, I've seen so many guys that you go out and watch them throw routes on air. You watch them throw 7-on-7, and I'm like, man, this guy's gonna come take my job. This guy's incredible. Watch him throw, and then you go put 11-on-11 out there, and you put a crowd in the stands, and you put pads on and a little bit of scheme, and it just short circuits, and it doesn't go well. And so there's so much more than just being able to throw a spiral to a spot that goes into playing this position.
I love that so much. I think that's something that's actually not talked about nearly enough. And I couldn't help but think about Jalen Hurts because we hear all of those types of criticism about him, right? He doesn't look like a quarterback. The guy is built like a 20 carry a guy running back. He's built like a linebacker. He's not built like a quarterback, right? He doesn't have that quarterback build like Carson Wentz looks like a quarterback. Tom Brady looks like a quarterback. Josh Allen, Ben Roethlisberger. Although Ben has a little more linebacker in him, but he still has, Ben was what 6'4", 6'5", that type of player. Peyton Manning, but just because a guy looks the part doesn't necessarily mean the guy is the part, right? You got those guys who can throw, the 100-mile-an-hour fastball. They can throw it on a rope, throw a dime, whatever it is, hit that tight window, hit that same spot repeatedly. All these things that make them look like that guy when there's no defense. And that is one of the reasons you get a lot of busts in the NFL because in college, some guys that can look so great, they're not consistently going against the type of defenses they're going to play in the NFL, right? They've got receivers that are wide open, they've got more time, whatever the case may be. And it made me think of, I think a great example everyone knows, although I get that he had other reasons for self-destructing, right? But Ryan Leaf, a lot of people forget this, but there were a whole lot of people who thought Ryan Leaf should have been drafted ahead of Peyton Manning. In baseball, a great example as I'm listening to this that made me think more about uh, Jalen Hurts as well is you all seen Moneyball, right? Or at least a lot of you, I'm sure, have seen Moneyball, the Brad Pitt movie that was about Billy Beane and the whole, analytics kind of got that going with Bill James, the godfather of analytics, who, by the way, was mocked, laughed at mercilessly by Major League Baseball for years and years and years before his stuff started being applied, right? And Billy Beane, as we saw in the movie, he was one of those guys in baseball, right? He's a five-tool player, right? If you look at all the individual components, he can hit for power, he could hit for average, he could play defense, he could throw, he had speed and all of that. But ultimately, when it came to being a successful baseball player at the major league level, he didn't have that. Jalen Hurts doesn't have all of those things. We talk about he doesn't have that rocket arm, although it's good enough to win in the NFL, isn't it? And he does have an absolutely incredible deep ball, right? He's not tall enough to see in the pocket, right? He can't do this, he can't do that. But the man produces, he finds a way to get it done, and he wins games, which is ultimately what matters. What can he do when you actually go out and play on Sunday? And it started making me think about the team as well this year and how that sets up Jalen Hurts, and it started making me think about Mannion, which is sort of, on that, I guess he's on that Shanahan branch of tree of offenses. And what's that going to look like this year? And you look at some of these teams like Green Bay, obviously, where Mannion came from, and people would talk about how that's a team that didn't have any superstars, but still had this phenomenal offense. And yes, we have a wide receiver one, absolutely. Although a lot of people don't want to give him that kind of credit because they'll say, oh, but can he be one without A.J. Brown? Yes, he can. We do have a fantastic tight end, no doubt. But still, if you look at the team, look at what Howie Roseman did. And for me, he went out and got the type of skill players that you need in the new style of offense. And so now we've got a lot of depth. Brought in a lot of depth. Didn't bring in superstars, but brought in a lot of depth of above average skill players that can excel in this offense, that can create matchup nightmares for other teams, that give the Eagles a lot of options when it comes to calling a variety of different plays. And on top of that, we've got a guy who's a wide receiver, number one. Obviously, in those schemes, you're going to see Jalen Hurts be under center more. I think he was somewhere around a little over between 7 and 8%. Although, again, and I've done video with it with a film, Jalen Hurts has played under center plenty in the past, did it in college. He can do it successfully without a doubt. Jordan Love in Green Bay. And again, I bring up Green Bay as being one of those style teams because obviously that's where our OC came from. He was under center around 20%, a lot more than Jalen Hurts, but still not a lot compared to some other Shanahan style offenses like Stafford with the Rams. I believe Darnold in Seattle also played under center a lot more, and so and you get some other things I think that will be added to it that we'll see. And as I'm thinking about what Matthew Stafford is saying, and then what a player can actually do, Jalen Hurts rolling out more. I Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm blanking. Maybe I just have like it was so traumatic with our offensive coordinator this past year that I blocked things out. But I don't recall Jalen Hurts doing a whole lot of design rollouts that are pass plays, right? Not even rolling out on that it's an option. I think he probably rolled out and ran a few times, although that was also down. But I don't recall Jalen Hurts, and he can throw on the right when he gets out of the pocket, he can throw. So hopefully that's one thing they'll get added to, right? I think we get Jalen with these skill players doing these new things that are going to help the offense while also then incorporating the things we already know Jalen does well, like the deep ball, like the RPO. Where a whole lot of I don't, especially now with we're I don't recall a whole lot of RPOs last year either. Jalen can roll out and throw. Don't recall seeing a lot of that last year. Those are things that aren't necessary. Well, Jordan Love would do it, right? So maybe we will definitely get that. Obviously, Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold, as I mentioned, those are guys who won't do it, but get more RPOs, get more designed rollouts for Jalen Hurts. I think that'll be important for him as well. So it was just really interesting to me, and I wanted to talk about it because I mean, it speaks a lot to the unpredictability of players that can take the next step and the flaws and limitations in how we evaluate players because it's stuff that's been talked about a lot about players in general in the past. We all know that. And it just seems like it's been a big thing with Jalen Hurts, right? We've heard about the limitations with his arm. He doesn't have a great arm. He's not very accurate, although, again, best deep ball in the NFL. And I've also shown video on how accurate he can be even on short pass. He doesn't throw over the middle, although, again, we have shown that not to be true. It's just in the offense that the Eagles have run, they haven't called a lot of those. So it just, man, anyway, I don't want to keep repeating myself. Apologies, but just listening to Matthew Stafford, all I could think about, besides the baseball equivalent as well, was man, he's just nailing it with Jalen Hurts. Like Jalen Hurts isn't probably the guy when you're running those type of drills that Matthew Stafford's talking about, right? The 20-yard down and out that's just, thrown on a rope at 150 miles an hour and put on the bullseye. That's probably not Jalen Hurts, right? He doesn't look the part again. Oh, he's not going to be able to see over the lineman. And yet put the man in a game and he produces. Put some of those other guys that look incredible, that look like a scout's, wet dream, so to speak, in 77, no defenses at all, just running drills, and they're like, that's the guy we got to draft. And they get to the NFL and they never ever take that next step, man. So anyway, I thought it was really interesting. I'm excited about what we're going to see with this offense this year. Really looking forward. This is the month, finally, later on in the month, but this is the month we're going to get camp going. We're going to be able to talk a lot more football. We're going to see what the players look like. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Truly appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. I will talk to you later.